The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this valuable Power Retail webinar session brought to you today by data solutions provider ReturnPath. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Prinitha Govender. I'm the editor of Power Retail, and I'll be introducing our guest speaker very shortly. Before the introduction, some quick housekeeping. Mobile phones, if you could please turn these to silent. I can't ridicule you if it goes off because I won't hear it, but that's besides the point. You probably want to pay attention because it's going to be a great session. At the end of the presentation, we'll have time for questions. You can enter these at any time in the question dialog box on your dashboard, and we'll do our very best to answer as many as we can. We've got a big session ahead this morning, so get comfortable. Today's webinar is all about achieving success through email. Our presenter, Theo Noel, Vice President International at ReturnPath, will help provide you with all the essential tips to make your peak, holiday, and special event emails stand out from the crowd. Remember, it's never too early to start planning your peak season marketing efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Theo Noel.
So thank you very much, Prinitha, and it is my pleasure to host today's webinar. So my name is Theo Noel. I'm the Vice President of International at ReturnPath. Just a quick background. I'm a marketer by trade, but an email marketer at heart. And the last 15 years of my life, I've dedicated it to helping organizations improving their email marketing program, making the email marketing channel a channel that works for them in order to manage the best return on investment you can get out of email marketing. So today, I'm going to be covering some interesting research into what you can do to ensure that your seasonal email stands out from the crowds. We are going to be taking a look at how you can ensure that your email reaches the inbox, and when it's there, how you can make it stand out from the hundreds of other emails that are vying for customer dollars. In the recent DMA UK Marketer Email Tracker report, our ROI on email marketing has increased over the previous year. If we are looking at it in terms of Australian dollars, for every $1 spent by email marketer, $48 return on investment. This is by far the highest return on investment of all marketing channels. So we are going to start at a fairly high level before drilling down into analysis. The first foundation of good inbox placement is actually data quality. So we will be looking at our first tip, which is actually how to improve that data quality. If your subscriber gives you good quality, accurate data, then your email will reach the right person and will create a connection that encourages engagement. There is huge opportunity for us marketers to better align with people's desires. Although most subscribers aren't initially willing to share data, they will in exchange for some kind of benefits. If subscribers understand why they need to give you good quality and accurate data, they are more likely to give you an email address that is both valid and regularly checked. We classify email into 3 categories. The primary accounts are actively engaged, meaning that subscribers regularly show inbox activity like reading, deleting, or even moving messages. The secondary accounts receive a high number of promotional and transactional messages, but few personal messages. Subscribers are less engaged than primary account. And finally, it's what we call dead account. They show very little engagement with their inbox at all. So let's take a look at a good example of encouraging the value exchange. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with National Geographic, the global education and conservation organization. In order to partake to any activities on the site, you need to register an account with them. You will notice a link that says, "Why am I joining?" And following it explains the value exchange. So, essentially, in exchange for a little information, we will give you the ability to share your photos, interact with other site users, and enter contests. Thinking like a consumer, that seems like a fair deal to me. And if I didn't understand, I have the opportunity to provide feedback too. And for every other non-standard input, there is an explanation of why it's required. Generally, it's because it requires to deliver me contextual information and a better experience. Nothing has been asked here that isn't required to give me a better experience. And as a result, I am more likely to exchange information. Let me also add that I'm more likely to exchange accurate information because of the value I'm going to get. Quite often, email experts will recommend that you implement what we call double opt-in, which requires subscriber to confirm the email address that they have given you. And whilst, yes, this does help to improve the number of engaged email addresses on your list, there are other ways you can do this. This example from How to Find encourages interaction from the outset with an engaging subject line and a pre-header that encourages the subscriber to open the email. The promo code is time limited, which means it's much more likely that in the first few days after subscription, you are likely to see engagement from the email address. And furthermore, How to Find encourage you to control what emails they send you through a very well-designed preference center. This circles us back nicely to the point that gaining the trust of new subscribers is key to getting the best quality email addresses, which gives the best quality result. Let's look at a very local example with Red Balloon. Red Balloon only captures email addresses if you opt in to receive an incentivized newsletter or in the course of a sale. As a result, the quality of addresses in their database is excellent, and they are rewarded with a 20% higher inbox placement rate and a whopping 145% uplift of read rate compared to the rest of the sender in this study. So our first tip is really that the sign-up process is a perfect opportunity for us marketers to make a good first impression. It is our opportunity to set expectations and also allow new subscribers to exercise choice about what type and level of email activities they would like to receive. And if you do require an email address for site access, the best way would be to use a double opt-in process that requires new subscribers to activate their membership by clicking on a link sent to them. At the end of the day, this will ensure only valid addresses are going to be added to your membership base. So tip number 2, let's have a look at what volume has. Let's talk about spam filtering, which is widely sought to increase during peak mailing period. And as we can see, it really, really does. As an example, average spam filtering increases to around 25% above the 12 months benchmark as we approach the April holiday period, Easter, and Anzac Day. There are also some big underlying changes in subscriber behavior during this peak period. Less emails are read, and more importantly, more of it is actually marked as spam. The Christmas period is an obvious example, with up to 50% more email is marked as spam. But February for Valentine's Day, April for Easter and Anzac Day, September, October all stand out. This is really indicative of how subscribers react to being more aggressively targeted during these periods by you and by the entire industry. Furthermore, we generally see substantial volume increase during this period. So subscribers receive substantially more from the same sender that normally emails them. When you couple this with the increase in negative engagement metrics, it is actually no wonder that filtering increases at these times. So our second tip is really regarding volume. If you are planning on increasing volume, you are not only going to shock your subscriber, but mailbox providers are also sensitive to changes in your sending patterns. Be cautious when increasing your volume. Just do it gradually. Keep an eye on your engagement metrics and do it well in advance of the actual peak period. So looking at our third one, let's consider how we use our list. Whilst we're on the topic of increased frequency, here is some research we conducted on the effect of sending multiple times to subscribers in a week. You can clearly see that once you reach the tipping point, which is roughly 5 messages per week, read rate takes a real hit and complaint rate rise sharply. Bear in mind that a complaint rate of 0.1%. 0.1% sounds such a small volume, but if it is on all your email traffic, it is enough to cause you some real problem getting your email into the inbox. But what is the most fundamental and the most critical is that 0.1% complaint rate could equate to 25% of your list churning in one full year. That is 25% of your list that could disappear by just increasing the complaint rate. So important to keep an eye out for it. So our third tip is to actually be very careful that you are not wearing your subscribers down. Keep an eye on different segments of your list. For example, the most and the least engaged. And if you are going to send more email, monitor those segments for signs of burnout, like higher unsubscription rate, higher complaint rate, less open, less clicks. There are certainly opportunities that you can exploit to squeeze more from your subscriber, but it needs to be done with a great deal of care. So now let's have a look at how to engage and especially re-engage well in advance. Let's take a look at an example. Here is an email list of about 150,000 subscribers, where, as demonstrated earlier, the majority of the list is made up of secondary mailboxes. Remember, secondary mailboxes don't read every email, but engage with their mailboxes on a regular basis. We still have, for this very specific example, a good chunk of primary mailboxes with a high read rate and just actually under 10% of dead mailboxes. So if we are looking to increase frequency effectively, we should send more email to those subscribers who read a lot of email and aren't overwhelmed yet. And we can perhaps send slightly more to secondary inboxes in the hope that more of our email gets noticed and read. However, we will definitely not send any more to dead mailboxes, since A, they don't read any email, and B, will negatively affect deliverability if volume is increased. What you can see here is that by increasing volume slightly to those most likely to engage, a substantial uplift in revenue can potentially be achieved. Moreover, this model introduces only a slight increase in mailing frequency and reduces the chance of increased unsubscribe or list churn that might occur if we blanket increased the volume across the board. So once we're on the topic of increasing volume during busy period, senders are often tempted to reintroduce old data that maybe hasn't been used for a while in an attempt to increase sales. Introducing old data needs to be done in a controlled fashion, and what's more, we should also consider the potential consequences of mailing to dormant subscribers. We conducted a study into win-back program, and it showed that although engagement for win-back email is typically low, just 9% of a sender's average read rate, but by receiving those emails, subscribers are often influenced into interacting with future messages that may be sent further down the line. So the direct correlation of increasing or reintroducing data can be associated with a long-term strategy for you to re-engage your customers. So what that means is that if you are planning to re-engage with old subscriber during peak period, is that you should be doing so, but well in advance. The influence that contacting old subscriber can have over future engagement can be a positive, but with a big caveat. Given what we talked about earlier, with the increased propensity for active subscriber to also complain and behave in a more negative way with their email, peak periods may not be the best or most productive time to start thinking about re-engaging old data. Instead, do it a couple of months before the peak period so you can prime this data for the best engagement possible. So let's talk about how you can get your email to stand out in those crowded inboxes. So let's keep it short, but actually actionable. Firstly, we know mobile devices dominate email interaction. This represents actually some complexity when it comes to squeezing the most information into our subject line and generating engagement. Firstly, we have the truncation of subject line that can start to occur at around 35 characters, depending on the device type. This means we need to be creative when using the space available, and also use additional space like the pre-header to extend the subject line and really encourage interaction with the email. So here is some data from Australian retailer that clearly shows a decline in engagement with longer subject line, especially as we head into the final quarter of the year, or here looking back at what happened last quarter. Furthermore, the lower read rate coupled with increased complaints means more of that email is sent to the junk folder. But on the flip side, shorter, more punchy subject line get a boost in engagement into Q4. A possible learning is that email subscribers are actually more likely to engage with longer subject line during lower volume period and with shorter ones during busy periods, simply because they have more personal time, or time to email ratio is reduced. So here is a local, very clever example of combining subject line with a pre-header to create a two-part message. Subscriber engagement was high, with read rate 50% higher than this sender's benchmark. And the second point is that user marked as spam, or the complaint rate, if you wish, were only half of the benchmark. So the combination of a punchy subject line and the quality pre-header increased across the board the metrics for that sender. As we have identified from the previous slides, keep the subject lines short and to the point during peak period, but leverage the pre-header text to extend the subject line. But also be aware of going too short. There is a trade-off. And if there isn't enough descriptive content in the subject line to persuade subscriber of the value in opening their emails, then response rate will unfortunately decline. We have also seen recent campaigns that use just a single word as their subject line, especially when they are promoting well-known brand. So think about brands such as Givenchy, Lacoste, or whatsoever, or any other ones. Generally speaking, these promotions have performed poorly. And this is maybe because they look distinctly spammy, with subscribers actually questioning whether they can actually trust these emails or not. So, like anything else, it is about setting up realistic expectations. And here is a very brief example. I like a brand by the name of Caliber, and it's actually my true story. Walking down Pitt Street, I saw that that shop was offering me 75%. They put a big 75% discount on their window. I didn't have any intention to buy anything, but at 75% off, I can tell you I would buy pretty much anything. So I get inside the shop and look for the 75% discount. After walking through all the things that are at full price, I'm directed by the vendor to the back where a single rack has a big sign saying 75%. I start looking into that single rack, and actually there was only size 22 of everything. None of the right color, not the right season, and everything sold was actually oversized to me. This is, in essence, what happens to email marketing. The subject line is a bit like the window of a shop. It is a promise that we make. The brand is what we marketers stand for, and providing wrong information can have disastrous impact. So let's translate my personal experience with that brand to what it means to email marketer. So a big challenge for email programs owner involves finding the right offer to tempt their customer into engaging. Discounting is always a popular approach, and in a recent report by the DMA in the UK, the following was listed as the most likely drivers for people to provide their email addresses. Number one was actually money off or discount, a $5 off. That was representing 46%. Percentage off or discount was about 41% in that survey. Free delivery is another driver. Free samples or gifts. And like the brand or shop or the site, only 28% in comparison. These results are even more pronounced today for millennial responders. We analyzed the two most popular approaches for the Australian market. both with a dollar off and a percentage off. And both of them generate above benchmark read rate, although dollar off also generate above benchmark complaint rate. We can also see that dollar off fluctuates more over time. So a potential reason for this is that dollars off is more transparent about what is being offered. So during peak periods, subscribers may be more persuaded by the hint of a big promise, for example, 50% off, which is why this approach works better at these times. So what email program, owners need to be very careful of is actually overstating that promise, like the example I mentioned about my visit into Pitt Street. We categorized the percentage off offers by the size of the discount being offered. We can see that discounts of between 50 and 75% generate the highest read rate and are clearly effective attention grabber. However, also please notice that these emails also generate the highest complaint rate. This may be subscribers who outright fail to believe the offers they are presented with, or those who responded and found it wasn't quite as good as it sounded. For example, when we say it's just limited to the first 10 purchasers. Note also that mailbox provider marked as spam or filtering or complaint rate increases consistently with size of discount, while complaint rates reduce again for the 76 to 100% band. This is because most of those emails are being placed directly into recipient's spam or junk folder. They are not generating reads or complaints because they aren't getting seen, full stop. This example from Oz Sales reinforces the point being made on the previous two slides. This recent Christmas promotion, which presented subscribers with a 90% off offer, generated read rates that were 10% lower than Oz Sales benchmark. At the time, the deleted unread rate, a negative behavioral metric, was 12.5% higher, suggesting that some skepticism on the part of recipients and translated into a reduced willingness to engage with these emails. As we demonstrated over the previous slide, the use of discounting is an effective engagement driver for Australian email program owners, especially percentage off offers. However, it is important not to overcook the offer, which may create skepticism, as well as creating an impression of spamminess. This will ultimately contribute to negative engagement, which can actually harm your program performance. Also, note that there can be a major difference in what sender consider to be effective approaches versus what recipient actually want to receive. This is vividly illustrated by this chart from the recent released DMA UK Marketer Email Tracker report. Remember that your challenge as an email program owner is not just to make your own emails great. You are also competing with many other senders for eye share, mind share, and share of the wallet. Subscribers are increasingly time pressured and their attention span is diminishing because of this. You need to work hard to make sure your share of subscriber attention is greater than your competitor. Leverage the ideas we have just presented to make sure your email stands out during peak period, strong calls to action, greater sense of urgency, and creating email. Perhaps the most significant challenge for email program owners right now is dwindling attention spans. What was always a small number has actually even reduced significantly since the start of the millennium. Data gathered from Return Path Email Client Monitor Dwell Time Report suggests that the average email is engaged with for only 9 seconds. This is exacerbated by the behavior of millennials, with a recent report in the UK Sunday Times suggesting people in this group start to get stressed by mobile tasks that take longer than 2 seconds. So the question email program owners need to grapple with is this. In an age of increasingly crowded inboxes and dwindling attention span, how do I give my email a fighting chance of standing out? One part of the answer is actually to think creatively about not just content, such as content creative and offer, but also about the tone of voice that you are using with your subscribers. What style of language do they expect from you? And what are the key phrases that will be the most response to? We analyzed a set of Christmas campaigns to determine the effectiveness of specific subject line keyword. As we can see from the graph, the use of Christmas and season were more effective at driving read rate, while Christmas, Santa, and present were less effective. This was actually reinforced by an inverse performance from the mailbox provider marked as spam metrics, or the filtering. From this, we might infer that Australian email subscribers are traditionalists at heart, preferring festive season terminology that has not been Americanized. It is interesting to note that while season was an effective engagement driver, it also generated the highest user-marked spam rates or complaints. We are possibly lacking some context here if it was frequently part of holiday season, another Americanization, but this could explain the more negative response to this keyword. So looking at a local example from Kogan, it reinforces the value of Christmas as an effective keyword. Read rate for this campaign were almost 50% greater than Kogan's benchmark, while complaints rates were only around half. This email also highlights the effectiveness of an approach we sometimes call inspiration. Especially at peak volume time, subscribers are heavily pressed for time and actually want someone to do some of the heavy lifting for them. Campaign along the lines of "here is everything you need to help you with your shopping" are appreciated and drive higher level of engagement because of this. Is it safe to use free? Generally speaking, the answer is yes, but it does depend to some extent on its context. As reputation and subscriber engagement become ever more important determinants of engagement, content-based spam triggers are becoming increasingly irrelevant. However, that's not to say that subscribers won't respond negatively to approaches they consider to be too cheap or too spammy. So a carefully positioned free in capital letters that calls attention to a great offer will be effective. But free, 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 smiley, smiley, smiley will likely be a lot less effective. This graph actually hides the truth slightly because it shows the average outcome of both approaches, with an uplift in both read rates and filtering rates. Our experience is that senders who take the first approach should expect to see an uplift in response rate by doing so. So another creative tactic is actually to create a sense of urgency. It is another effective engagement driver. But again, this should be done with consideration for how subscribers want to be spoken to. Most people are open to being encouraged to do something, the nudge theory in action. But far fewer want to be told to do something, and they may actually respond negatively if they feel this is the case. The examples today clearly illustrate this story. Softer approaches, letting subscribers know that the promotion is nearly over by using words such as ends, ending, and soon, were all very effective in driving up the read rate. However, Last Chance was probably perceived as a more in-your-face approach, and read rates were much lower. There is also the risk that readers who come across this email 1 or 2 days after it was sent will then automatically assume the promotion is over, meaning they won't respond, and worse, may complain because the email is now perceived as having zero relevance. So, written paths, the art and science of effective subject line, contain a load of excellent intelligence on the topic of effective subject lines keywords. And we thoroughly recommend downloading a copy for additional ideas of the most effective approaches. Finally, 2016 was very much the year that the use of animated imagery went mainstream. And we have seen some increasingly innovative examples recently. This isn't just a case of sending whizzy email. It goes back to the point we made at the beginning of the webinar about subscribers being more engaged if they feel there is a fair exchange of value between sender and recipient. More often, we are hearing that subscribers, in addition to wanting to receive relevant offers and content, also want to be entertained while they do so. These types of approaches go a long way to helping achieve this, especially now that most major email clients now support it. We regularly see uplift in programs' performance, where animated imagery has been leveraged, and we encourage senders to make greater use of these subscriber engagement drivers. So remember that your challenge as email program owner is not just to make your own email great. You are also competing with many other senders for eye share, mind share, and share of wallet. Subscribers are increasingly time pressured, and their attention span is diminishing because of this. You need to work hard to make sure your share of subscriber attention is greater than your competitors. Leverage the ideas we have just presented to make sure your email stands out during peak period. Strong calls to action, greater sense of urgency, and creating emails that entertain as well as inform will all play a role in driving up positive engagement with your program. As an added bonus, these approaches will also make your email stand out in the spam and junk folder, making them easier to identify when senders are looking for misplaced emails, and more likely to be recovered as a result. Gmail in particular is on record as saying it considers this is not spam notification to be an order of magnitude more important than complaints in terms of acting as an indicator of good or bad email programs. So for today, 7 key takeaways. The most important is to establish a relationship with your subscriber where, in exchange for good quality data, you promise them that you're going to be doing the right thing by them. About your mailing consistently, and slowing increase during peak time will have the better result for you. You can definitely send more email, but only to the clients who can accept it. And if you run your re-engagement program, do it outside the peak volume period. Shorter subject line will definitely go much further. Use the pre-header to extend your story, to entice them to really read your email. And when you use discount, amount or percentage, make it believable. So don't follow the crowd during peak period, but do use time constraints to your advantage. So that's pretty much it for us today. I leave you with a couple of items that you can come and visit. So today's data was presented to you leveraging the insights that written past customers have access to, and all the research was done using local brands in Australia.
Thank you very much for that insightful presentation, Theo. I certainly learned a lot about achieving success through email today. We have quite a few questions lined up this afternoon. The first one from Theo is, you mentioned the high return on investment for email marketing, but isn't email on the way out? Won't it be replaced by my social media?
Thank you very much. So the Wall Street Journal, on a regular basis, and if it's not the Wall Street Journal, it will be Forbes magazine, love to write the big article which speaks about the end of email marketing. Email marketing is not dead. Email marketing still the workhorse of marketing. Why do I say that? Item number one, we always predict that social media will take over email. But the first thing that Facebook or Twitter will be asking you for is actually your email address. For one reason, if they start to lose contact with you, they would want to send you an email to remind you to go back to your app. Email also represents the best return on investment out of any other direct marketing channel. We're still trying to grasp the concept of making revenue out of social media. It is hard, and we still without confidence, be in a position to attribute revenue for different channels. So email is here to stay. It might keep on mutating, but it is still here to stay.
Okay, thank you, Theo. The next question we've got is, what is better, personalized emails to segments or the same message and offer to my whole mailing list?
Email marketing is, for me, it is still direct marketing. So more we're going to be in a position to personalize, better it's going to be. It is today possible through the use of technology to really have endless combination and permutation in one email. When I work with some large airline in Australia, it is not surprising to hear that there is 10 to 12,000 permutation of each email going out. It is one email template these days with endless and countless iterations of it.
Great. Well, look, that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this insightful and valuable webinar brought to us by Return Path. The video will be available online soon. Please sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already for any upcoming webinars that could be of help to you at www.powerretail.com.au. I would like to take a moment to thank Theo Noel from Return Path for the insightful webinar. Thank you very much, Theo. I'm signing out now. I hope you all have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.